Assalamu alaikum. My name is Salim Siddiqui, and thanks for watching this continuing series on the hotconflict.com website. We're talking about the unseen world, and we're getting ready to wrap up and go through full disclosure and the ascension of the Prophet Muhammed. And we're wrapping up on the fundamentals of faith that there is a creator, Lord Most High, one who is higher than all of his creation and has been described as Nurun ala Nur, light of all lights, the source of all that is, the supreme architect of all that is, as my brethren would say. And he has created angels of the light and other beings in other dimensions called the Jinn, created of smokeless fire. And there are other humans in other places throughout the universe, and ourselves, sons of Adam, on this planet. And that there are prophets who are divinely inspired and guided to carry out a certain message with books. And all of this is by the plan of your Lord, with heaven and eternal life of punishment and reward for the believers and disbelievers in the plan of your Lord. And we are talking about full disclosure and going right back into the topic where we left off, is that the Prophet and his companions and all those who believed were having a very, very hard time. And they were in the early years of Mecca, and they were shunned from the community, and they were living out in the desert, and the wife of the noble Prophet has passed away. And one of the things that the Prophet is blessed with, that we referred to in the last episode, was the moment of the offering of everything to the Prophet of this world, and the moment where he rejects it, and he becomes the recognized avatar or sunnah or way for all of us. And because of that, he is granted at that moment the honor of ascension. And so we go straight into the ascension of the Prophet. Now, since this whole series has been about the ascension, and most people who are in the Enlight Worker community talk about the ascension, I am so surprised, and it is really quite disturbing that most people don't understand and have not reviewed the ascension of the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet, Subhanalladhi asra bi abdihi min masjid al-harami ila al-masjid al-aqsa, right? That the Prophet went from the noble area, the sacred area, to the furthest mosque, to the other noble temple. Now, where is the other noble mosque or the other noble temple? If you've heard me tell this story, then you should already know the interpretation of that verse. Of course, it is the holy temple of my brother Solomon. And from there, he went up into the heavens. So let's describe the story of the ascension of the Prophet in detail. Now, if you understand some of the details, the Prophet woke up from where he slept in Mecca, correction there, for those of you who have been following along the stories of the prophets, and he went outside his place of sleeping, and there he was greeted by an animal that we call al-burraq, a horse with wings. Jay, there's a little tribute to you, my sis. A horse with wings. Now, this is important because it relates to many of the issues that are going to happen later on, as many people talk about the horsemen and those different color horses and horses that can fly. And so the Prophet rides a white horse, and he travels on this white horse, and this horse travels with the Prophet riding on his back from the distance of one eye, span, or the distance of an earth span or an eye span distance, meaning a huge distance. And the Prophet ends in the Temple of Solomon, or the noble Temple of Solomon. And there he ties the animal, and he is greeted inside of the temple by all of the other messengers, all of the other prophets of the light. As we said, the story is about all of the prophets, because one of the misconceptions is that people always try to make Islam separate, not having to do with the last Testament or the early Old Testament or any of the other noble prophets who came before them. That I have recounted you the stories and included all of them. So there the Prophet meets with all of the prophets of the light. And there they all greet and hug each other, as we have discussed, is the way of our people. And there an important event occurs, is that they all perform the prayer of the Muslims, which is 2 circuits of prayer. And the leader amongst them all is the noble messenger Muhammad ibn Abdullah Sayyid al-Mursaleen, meaning the leader in status of all of the messengers. Now, what do I say by leader in status? Leader in status of the role he carried out, but not a superior soul. I feel so shy in saying that, as the light of my prophet is so bright and so shiny that even all of my brethren feel shy not admitting his brightness. Even my father, Adam, admired the brightness of our prophet, sallallahu ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And so we see that the prophet led all of the other messengers of the light, all of them, in the prayer. And after the prayer, he began his own ascension. And we go through the journey of the ascension. On each level, he greets different messengers, including Jesus, son of Mary, John the Baptist, including Adam, including Enoch. We're going to have to do another video about that on Enoch, including Harun, or Aaron and Moses, including at the very highest level, at the 7th heaven. And at each heaven he is greeted by angels who greet him, and he goes on along. And the angel Gabriel accompanies him on this journey and accompanies him up on his ascension. And at the highest level, we know he does what? At the highest level of this universe, there is a Kaabah. At the highest dimension of this universe, there is a Kaabah, where the angels go in counterclockwise fashion around the house of your Lord. Now, those of you who listen to the stories of truth, you're starting to feel a vibe. I know you're feeling a vibe, because the angels go in counterclockwise fashion, and your prophet goes up to the highest level of the heavens. And there is that feeling there. And there is the lote tree. And at the highest 7th level is our father, Abraham. Peace and blessings be upon our father, Abraham. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Ibrahim. Wa ala ali Sayyidina Ibrahim. Fil alameen. Peace and blessings be upon our father Ibrahim, and on those who descended of the light from the family of Ibrahim in all the dimensions that exist throughout all of the worlds. Abraham is there leaning up against the Kaabah, relaxing in his noble status. There at the noble house that exists in the highest realm, there were the angels. Every day, 70,000 angels of the light get to make the circumnambulation of the holy house. And 70,000 do it, and they leave. And they only get to do it once. So many angels of the light, my brothers and sisters, exist that you are about to see so many things that you can't even imagine, that your journey is about to begin, my brothers and sisters. I'm getting so excited. And after going from the noble house, Angel Gabriel takes him further on, and the lote tree is there, and beyond the tree, the angel Gabriel says to the beloved messenger, now is the chance for you to go a little bit further, where I don't go. You go by yourself. And the noble messenger goes where no one has ever gone before. Where no one has ever gone before. And he goes beyond the shade, beyond the curtain, beyond the veil, as we would say, and crosses and hears from your Lord Most High. Imagine that, my brothers and sisters. And it is at that noble and blessed moment, at the highest levels of the heavens, that the final messenger of your Lord is given the prayer for the first time. And brings it back, and we know the story where he descends and speaks to our brother Moses. Again, a clear indication of referencing my brothers and sisters from the children of Israel. And a process occurs with the story of 50 and then 45 and so on, all the way to 5 actual prayers in physicality required upon the Son of Man, with the reward and the vibration and light of 50 prayers. And the prophet returns to the land and then returns to that place and then returns across the earth to back into the place of his home. And even in some of the references in the stories, the angels touch the place of his bed and they feel it's still warm, subhanallah, as no time has passed and the prophet has seen all that he has seen. So we go through the interesting tale, the details of the ascension, my brothers and sisters. So we have interesting parts, like we have the actual travel through space and time. Well, you want to know some of the interesting details, so let's talk about some of the interesting points. 1, the ability to travel on winged horses. Now, there's been many references by the Prophet of different color horses and different people traveling on winged horses. And so as a reference to this, everyone should know by the karamah of Allah that during the awakening process, many people we are going to know, since a reference to Noah, are going to be able to communicate with their animals. And of course you can communicate with horses. And as a sign of love from the horse community, I will say, of course this sounds crazy to know the people who don't understand, but for those of you who understand, the horse community has already come and given their salam to me. Now those of you upon the light know that understanding very clearly, because those of you of the light who are pure and have done your work, you have maybe interacted with horses and they have already come and given their glad tidings and said their peace and blessings to you, and you who have an understanding of what I'm saying understand this. And so that's a funny little tidbit there. But the Prophet referenced different colored horses, and at one time 4 and at sometimes 10. And the reason why he did that is so that you would know, oh Muslims, ya ayyuhal muslimun, that anybody with the proper understanding for the sake of Allah, fi sabilillah, with the right intention, or any light worker can get on a horse at any time. And there is no limit on how fast that horse can go. And there is no limit on how far that horse can travel. Saying, Bismillah, or by the name of the Creator Most High, Kun fayakun, be and it is. The only thing lacking in this process is your belief, as all of us who are upon the truth, both above and below, will tell you. Speaking of above and below. Now here is an interesting tidbit that most Muslims are not going to comprehend because it hasn't been made clear until this moment. That one of the interesting understandings, and this is a salam to my brothers and sisters of the Shia community because of their focus on the spiritual nur of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the recognition of Ahl al-Bayt. They have focused on certain parts of the story that we, the Ahl al-Sunnah, have not focused on, right? And so I say salamu alaikum, peace and blessings to my brothers and sisters of the light from the Shia community have focused on this part of the story. And many of their scholars have been telling you this, that the Temple of Solomon that the Prophet visited and the Temple of Solomon where all of the prophets were within was not the Temple of Solomon of the third dimension that we are imagining from the time of Solomon, because we know that the time of Solomon has passed. And so oftentimes we fail to see that when the prophet rides on this spiritual animal, he doesn't necessarily go to the Temple of Solomon that we think of on the third dimension. Now, many people in the Lightworker community will describe that the actual temple is the one being rebuilt within the center of the earth, within the hollow of the earth, within the core of the earth. A reference again to the 7 levels of the earth, the 7 skies, and within the earth the same, or within the earth, or of the earth like, meaning 7 possible levels of earth, 7 stages within the earth, 7 spiritual levels of the earth. Now, of course, most of us in this third dimension, it's hard for us to comprehend levels beyond physicality and dimensions, both within, below, and above. But this idea is there within the ascension of the prophet, that he went to the inner dimensions. Now, some people along the spiritual path may also try to describe it a different way, in that the whole earth itself is ascending, and therefore the spiritual realm where the prophets and that spiritual temple of Solomon exist is actually above us dimensionally, and that we are rising up to it. An interesting little reference there that'll become important when we talk about first contact. Yes, I'm giving a little plug there. So understanding that the Temple of Solomon is that place, and it is there, but not necessarily the one we understand in physicality. So this is an important question, because we often have this misunderstanding about certain characters in the story. Now, we said that Jesus, son of Mary, did not die, and that he has been, my brother, gallivanting around the universe, doing different things as he is destined to do. And we know that one of the things that he is destined to do, my brother, peace and blessings be upon him, the one we call Emmanuel or Yeshua or Isa ibn Maryam, Son of Man, is the return of the Son of Man being, why did he say the return of Son of Man? Is because man being at that time an enlightened, noble status, the highest of creation, Son of Man. But that's not yet, is it? So we said that, going back to our story, that the prophet's ascension indicates that the prophet and those who understood it were trying to tell you that the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did not ascend of the spirit, did not ascend just of the soul. The prophet rode on an animal and ascended up into the heavens in physicality. And this is the belief of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, those who understand the true understanding of the prophet's journey. And this is the importance of As-Siddiq, Abu Bakr, peace and blessings be upon him, as declaring, I understand this and believe it and don't have any problem believing it whatsoever. I believe that the Lord Most High has spoken the word to the Archangel Gabriel, and that Gabriel has given the word to Muhammad ibn Abdullah. I believe that. You want me to doubt that he has ascended? Of course I believe in the other realms. Come on, my brothers and sisters. I know for you who are Muslim, many times we talk about the Isra and Mi'raj, but you haven't believed your own story. You haven't understood it. You haven't believed that is real. And there are those who are out there who are calling themselves light workers and other people who believe in these realms, and they don't understand what is there within our message of Islam. That the Prophet ﷺ went on this trip and returned in physicality and told us about this. Now, those of you who have to understand, where are all the messengers of light? They are where I told you. They have always been where they are. They are in the Temple of Solomon. They are within the holy temples praying and doing what they always do. Now, those of you who understand the inner earth, those of you who understand the inner earth and understand the concept of the inner earth, wherever you might spiritually describe it, what is in that center of the inner earth? It is that recreation of that final Temple of Solomon. And here it is an important caveat that we have to give. There are those who are Jews who believe that it is their duty to recreate this Temple of Solomon in physicality, and they are mistaken. And there are those who are Christian who believe it is their duty to recreate the Temple of Solomon in physicality, and they are mistaken. For don't you understand by the very essence of the story that the Temple of Solomon was built once in physicality, and it was built best, in the best mold, by the best person at the best time for that moment and that status and that role and that scene in our story is already played out. And that the temple, my brothers and sisters who are Jews and Christians, is a spiritual temple that exists and is way more real than anything you might build with bricks and mud, my brothers and sisters. And all your brothers and sisters of the light who have visited the temple or who have gone to the temple or know about the temple will acknowledge and admit what I'm telling you is open and clear. And any reason to fight over physical land because of a temple is a mistake in our understanding. And in this, my brothers and sisters from the Jewish community are mistaken. And in this, my brothers and sisters from the Christian community are mistaken. And in this, of course, my brothers and sisters from the Muslim community are mistaken. That being said, one of the other further things that we get from the Prophet's ascension is again that at different levels he was greeted and given the peace and glad tidings by each messenger of the light. Again, told us this and described us this, fully acknowledging that we are part of the tail, not a separate entity, not a separate group, but connected to the law of one, the oneness of all that is, believing in the Creator of all of the prophets, the Creator of all that is, the one who has made the perfection of all that is. Now, at a deeper level, we're going to have to talk about the actual Salah itself. What is the prayer? Now, you see, it was at part of the time many of my brothers and sisters don't realize, since we're now going to talk about sacred geometry, that while the Kaabah itself, now I have to mention something about the Kaabah since we're going to go back into sacred geometry and we're going to describe the essence of the prayer. You have to understand that the reason why the Salah or the prayer was assigned to the Prophet Muhammed at the highest point of ascension is that the prayer is the key to our planet's ascension. And don't worry, brothers and sisters who speak English. Don't worry, Lightworker community, if you don't understand what I mean. There are plenty of us who are praying and know exactly what it means. Now, this doesn't mean any other prayers are invalid. And don't misunderstand me, O brethren of the light. All of us can change anything with just a thought, right? With just an intent. Any one of us with pure emotional love, a pure love of the heart, and a pure intent could change this whole world if we so wanted. And all of us are getting ready to do so. But that being said, one of the things that is important about sacred geometry is we mentioned the black rock at the time of Adam. And we mentioned the rebuilding of the Kaabah at the time of Abraham. And we mentioned that it was built at the time of Adam. But at the time of the Prophet, we said that it was surrounded by pagans and that the Prophet was kicked out of Mecca. Now, many people don't realize that at this time, the center or the temple of light upon the earth was still the Temple of Solomon. Was still the portal of ascension. Was still the place of the ascension of Jesus, son of Mary. Jesus, son of Mary, will descend, by the way, at that same location. The prophet still ascended from that same location and returned to that same location. Right? You have to understand that there was a recognition that that was a primary portal, a primary hub of light, and that the direction that the Muslims prayed towards was towards Jerusalem. Do you realize that the Prophet and the Muslims prayed towards Jerusalem because they realized at that time that that is where the intent and the portal and the light was supposed to be channeled. There was an understanding of sacred geometry, my brothers and sisters. Now we get to an understanding of what is the actual prayer. Well, we said that the heart chakra of the earth is the Kaabah. And one of the things I needed to mention is that even prior to the ascension, even prior to the declaration of the Prophet Muhammed, that he was now a bearer of light and a messenger for the Lord, even prior to his revelation of the word of the Lord, he was considered a Sadiq al-Amin, a trustworthy, an honest and noble person. So much so that when the Kaabah was rebuilt, after it was destroyed in a destruction or a quake, one of the things that came loose was the black stone. And when it was time to put the black stone back in, a few of the tribes debated and got into an argument over what would happen. What would happen? And who would get the honor of doing a certain event. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was there at that moment. And him being the person that he was given the honor of resolving the conflict. There's a little plug to all my brothers and sisters who understand conflict resolution, who know that the next phase is about resolving conflict, who are heart-centered and oneness-centered, and are speaking from the heart and openness, and they know that the avatar that they're looking for is to resolve conflict. When you try to put yourself in that position and get into that frame of mind of being able to resolve conflict, then I want you to remember, what is that vibration that you're looking for? It's that moment where the Prophet is there, where the tribes on the earth are going to argue about something that is very crucial, the placing of the black stone into the heart chakra of the earth, into the temple of the Lord that we have now. And the Prophet is chosen to resolve the conflict. So what he decides to do is say that the stone, the black stone, will be placed on a cloth, and each tribe will have their leader hold one corner, and in a sense of unity and oneness, they will all together raise the stone in its noble fashion and raise it to its highest elevation, and that he himself would help place it into its spot. It just so happened that he got to be the one to do that as the one in the position of leading this process. It was his noble status and honor. But the Kaabah is the heart center, and the Kaabah or the Qibla changes, and now the center of the earth, the center of the direction, the portal of light, the focus of the light workers on this earth, the new pillar of light that is supposed to be the place of sacred geometry, is now the place of our father Adam, our father of flesh, of our father Abraham, our father of flesh and soul, of the final messenger. The place of prayer is changed, and the ascension of the Prophet has happened. It is time for the dramatic change. It is time for a new world to start. It is time for you to see what's going to happen next. It is time for you to know why it is that you are going to ascend. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.